Welcome everybody, welcome to Woodland Park Zoo. Glad to have you here today with our Attorney General Bob Ferguson for these and thanking for his continued support to fight against wildlife trafficking here in Washington and illegal wildlife trade. Right now we have behind us Taj and Glenn, two spectacular Asian one-horn rhinos originally from India and Nepal. And we choose this location at the zoo with a single purpose of highlighting the issue of wildlife trade. Illegal wildlife trade is one of the largest threats on wildlife here in Washington State and around the world. It's something that Woodland Park Zoo has been fighting for decades. And for these rhinos particularly, they've been victimized for their horns. The horn has become an item of luxury and also of some not very effective medicine in some Asian countries that really has decimated rhino populations in Africa and Asia to levels that have been very, very dangerous. Simply put, the idea that wildlife trafficking is making species go extinct here and around the world is something that we won't stand for. And it's important to make sure that we fight wildlife trade in every possibility. The global black market for rhino and ivory from elephants and pelts from tigers and leopards and shark fins and many other species that are becoming increasingly endangered by illegal wildlife trade is becoming a global phenomenon. It's something that is important for us to make sure that we have a stop to that and that we make our contribution to fight wildlife trade. Washington voters were pioneers and in 2015 passed Proposition 1401 that created one of the strongest and most enforceable illegal wildlife trade laws in the country. And thanks to that, and thanks to the agencies that have been enforcing that law here in Washington State, we're achieving major successes in stopping the trade of endangered species here in Washington and around the state, around the world. With the help of our departments at Washington Fish and Wildlife and Woodland Park Zoo, we're making a special event, Tusk. Is tossing any unwanted illegal wildlife items that have been accumulated in households. And this Saturday we will be making a special event here on our Hippo parking lot for anybody that has items on rhinos, elephants, tiger pelts, illegal wildlife, and so on, to make sure that they can drop these items here at the parking lot, and Washington State Fish and Wildlife Agency won't ask any questions. We will make that happen. The idea here is that on April 6th from 10 to 2, we will host that event, and the first 25 families that come in will get free entrance to the zoo. You'll see many exotic and endangered species being decimated by illegal wildlife trade, and we want to make sure that we have a voice in fighting that. With your help, the illegal wildlife trade will make sure that species like Taj and Glenn, rhinos, elephants, tigers, sharks around the world will have a chance to survive. To help us understand the importance of illegal wildlife trade and the importance in Washington State, I would like to introduce our Washington State Attorney General, Bob Ferguson. He's been one of the most vociferous advocates against wildlife trade and a very strong advocate for endangered species. Welcome to the Woodland Park Zoo.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much, Alejandro. And I've been Attorney General for my 7th year. I think it's fair to say this is my favorite press conference I've been a part of in 7 years for a lot of reasons. The importance of the issue, which you touched on, and also as some of you know, I have 11-year-old twins, Jack and Katie, and so I often tease them before school. I say, hey kids, I have a great idea. I'll go to school today. I'll go to your classrooms and you go to work. You do my job and I'll go to school. And they think this is very funny and they never want to do it, Alejandro. But today was the first day when they heard I was coming to the zoo, meeting the rhinos. They thought this was a trade they actually wanted to make. So it's great to be here. And I just want to say before I have just a few remarks, you know, the zoo has been such a strong partner on so many levels, and especially with the initiative that we're now enforcing to address the issue of trafficking of wonderful species like the rhinos that are here today. And so just thank you to you and your team for the wonderful work and the partnership that we've had, and look forward to more as we go forward as well. And also just the zoo on a personal note, look, I'm a native of Seattle. I grew up not too far from here. My kids live not too far from here. The zoo is, you know, about as central as it gets. It's iconic, obviously, for the city of Seattle. So just on a personal note, for my family and generations of Fergusons in this area, we really appreciate all that the zoo does and your entire team. Just a couple thoughts. I mean, one is that we obviously just announced yesterday the first criminal prosecution under Initiative 1401 that was overwhelmingly approved by the voters a few years ago, and otherwise known as the Washington Animal Trafficking Act. And so the prosecution of those cases is very important. Two members of my team from the AG's office, this is a team effort, of course. Bill Sherman and Scott Marlowe are here today. Appreciate their strong efforts. And you know, I think that initiative, which the zoo was a key partner on, and it continues to be a key partner on with the assistance as we enforce it, has been to enforce, to serve as a deterrence, but also to educate the public as well. And just last night, when I was literally talking with my kids about today's event, we were talking about the list of species that are identified. Some were intuitive to my children, and I think to the public, like the rhinos or elephants, but pangolins, for example, are on the list. I had no idea what a pangolin was. My children, who know more about wildlife than me, did not know. We went on the internet, we're pulling up pictures of them, we're learning about pangolins and talking about them over the dining room table. That's important. And what the zoo offers, what this initiative does, is make sure we're educating people on what's going on and to put traffickers on notice. These laws are going to be enforced, and there are consequences if you choose to violate our laws. I also want to follow up on what Alejandro had to say about the thanks for Washington State Fish and Wildlife. We have folks here from Fish and Wildlife on the drive up with my legal team. They just emphasize over and over again, we couldn't do this work without you, to put it mildly. We can bring cases when that investigation's been done. From reading the Seattle Times article, it gave you a sense of the depth and complexity of these investigations, what goes on with those investigations. So just a huge thanks to you and others as well. But you are a key partner, and it's been a great partnership, and we look forward to bringing, unfortunately, having to bring additional cases in the future. You know, I think just one last thing I'll say is on Toss the Tusk, I so appreciate the zoo holding this event. So folks who have ivory that no longer want to have that in their home have a safe, legal place to bring it to an institution that will know how to handle those materials. And so it's really just an honor to be part of an organization that has an event like that to help with the public. And then last but not least, Canine Officer Benny, I know, is in the house here somewhere. I think over here to the left. And my kids are excited to come out sometime and meet with Officer Benny as well. So from Officer Benny to Fish and Wildlife to the zoo to my legal team to county official, across the board, it's a team effort on these cases. It's a team effort to address this epidemic around our world that threatens endangered species, and it's nice to have the excuse to work on issues that my kids actually are interested in. You know, I often talk about my work, and you know how kids are when they're 11 years old, right? But trust me, when I talk about this, Alejandro, and what you are doing here, what Fish and Wildlife is doing, take my word for it. My kids were fully engaged. They're asking questions. They want to know what's going on. Why don't other states have these laws? Why don't other states do what we're doing here in Washington State? And that's one further goal we have, which is to really send a message to other states. I'll be communicating with my colleagues across the country, with other AGs. We have this law. It's working. We're enforcing it. And by getting other states to adopt similar measures and take similar enforcement actions and educate the public as well, we can truly make a dent in this epidemic. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great. I think we have room for perhaps a few questions.
We're getting off easy. Yeah.
Let me just say on top of that, working with other states, so we're not the only zoo pushing for against illegal wildlife trade. We have a coalition of zoos and aquariums that are working on everything from, you know, shark finning to bear bladder trade and all kinds of situations. So your work with the AGs in other states, our work with other zoos and aquariums in other states is really making a huge difference across the country. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Are we gonna skip it?
Well, you think they're going to